My name's Waymer.
My name's Lewis.
My name is Steve.
And you're listening to the Everyone But Us podcast. Make some noise, please.
Hey, yes.
You're listening to the Everyone But Us podcast, straight from the heart of London.
How you guys doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Still on this furlough, COVID lockdown thing. Been chilling, just been indoors, just doing a couple of little bits here and there. Recently put together a computer desk. Been playing loads of video games. My phone's still broke. And just been having fun. Just been playing with the dog and being with my girl as well. So it's just been fun, man. I'm just here laying low and just chilling, man. Just trying to think what's going to happen throughout this year. But I don't have too many complaints, man. Like, I'm healthy and been exercising a little bit more as well recently. So I'm trying to get rid of this lockdown fat around my belly as well. And I've been eating better as well. But overall, I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's good to hear, man. What about you, Steve? How you doing, my brother?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, recently it's just been a case of trying to just sort of cope with the boredom, trying to keep myself occupied. But I've got a voiceover job that I finished a couple of weeks back.
What was that for?
Remember the PC game that I did the little minor character for last time?
Yeah.
I extended it and they're putting that game out into the American market now, so all the voices are American, so I had to do an American voice.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was hard because I was sitting there and I had 5,500 words to do, and I'm sitting there with this American guy in the headphones, and he's like, your pronunciation is wrong. And I'm like, oh, fuck, man.
Anyway, man, we got a very special guest in the building. You can't mention New Jersey or New York hardcore without naming at least one of the bands he's been in. He's not only a dope drummer, but also a multi-instrumentalist. So without further ado, please welcome our guest, former drummer of One for One, former singer of Fat Nuts, past and present drummer of 20, and current bass player, I believe he used to play drums, for Homicidal. So please give it up for Seth!
Yep. Sick.
Seth, did I get that all correct?
Yes, you did.
Oh, great,
What's
man.
up?
Great. You know what? It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. Like, how you been keeping, man? How are you?
I'm not sure. This whole COVID thing is just kind of like driving me crazy. I'm losing track of time, but I'm doing all right.
How do you feel about the vaccine? Are you going to take the vaccine?
Yeah, I'm going to take it. I don't know when it's going to be available for me, but I will take it when it is. My mom took it.
I was on the side of not wanting to take it at first, but now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take it, man.
Yeah, I was like kind of on a wait and see, and now I see, so I'm all right.
So back in the 90s, when I was in my discovery phase of hardcore, us in London or the UK, we started to build relationships with a lot of the bands that were running up in mainland Europe. One of them bands was a band called Out for Blood from Belgium. And the singer from that band was a guy called Alan, and he a label called RPP Records. RPP Records back in the day had some amazing releases, not only from Europe, but stateside as well. I remember we was playing a show in Europe somewhere and he had his distro out and I was going through the distro. And if there was something that was really good, he would always say to me, you need to hear that. And I remember going 7 inches and seeing the We Won't Lose 7-inch. I bought it, I took it home, I played it. And the thing that I remember is hearing that bass line. Ding, dee, 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 ding, 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 dee, 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 ding. And then the guitars and the drums kicking in. Da, 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 da. You said. And from that moment, I was fucking in love, man. love that band. So before we get into One From One, because you were the drummer of that band, can you talk us about how you got into hardcore?
I guess it was gradual because, like, you know, I grew up a metalhead, and 1987, I was like real big into like Metallica. 88, I got into like Slayer, and so I was like gradually just going toward like heavier and heavier things. And then it, like the crossover bands that were coming out, like SOD, DRI. I got into a lot of those records, and like I was aware of what was going on in hardcore in the late 80s, even though I didn't go to a show until 92. So like when I was 12 in 1989, I have an older sister that I got into a lot of music through her too. She's 5 years older than me, and she had this older boyfriend that was like an old metalhead guy that I learned a lot from. And he went to go see Suicidal at the Ritz in like October of 89. And like, I was all excited to hear him like come home and tell me about it. And then he came home and he's just like, oh, it was horrible, man. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, all these skinheads, man, they were just beating the shit out of all the metalheads. Right. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why? He's just like, they hate us, man. I don't know. I'm like, they got you? He's like, no, I didn't go near the front. He's like, if you went near the front and you had long hair, you were going to get killed. Right. And he was just telling me, he's like, there's hundreds of them. And I was just like, man, I better stay away from these hardcore shows, man. But it was still like, I was like curious. I was like, but why? I was like, they like heavy music. Why do they like beat the long hairs off? So I was like, you know, curious about it. And then around the same time, they had another friend that was a really good drummer. They were calling him like the best drummer. I grew up on Staten Island, New York, and they were calling him the best drummer on the island. And so I was taking lessons from him, and he was a metalhead, but his friend was a skinhead guy. He's actually in Sheer Terror now. His name was Johnny Eggs. They had this like TV show that they did together called The Violent Side of Comedy. They had this theme song, and it was like a total hardcore song. It was like with the, you know, the fast hardcore beat, and then it broke down, and like, you know, like it was just like, I loved that. I didn't really understand that was hardcore yet, but like I used to listen to that all the time, and they had all this other music that they used to do, and like I definitely got a lot of my drum style from a lot of that stuff, you know, because the guy was my teacher and everything too. The band that really did it was Biohazard. I was really into the first album when it came out. It was September 11th, 1992, Biohazard and Burn at this club, the Marquee in Manhattan. Yeah, that was my first show. And like, as soon as I got there, I just felt like these were my people. Again, I was a metalhead, but I cut my hair early. I cut my hair in like 1990 because I started growing it when I was like 8, and I was just tired of it already. And then after I cut my hair, like, all these people were like, oh, you don't like metal, or you're a poser. And like a lot of them, it's like, I was into metal way before you. Like, what are you even talking about? You know?
Yeah,
and then I go to the hardcore show, and everybody had short hair, you know? Everyone dressed like I dressed, you know? And like the lyrics and the vibe weren't really representing the neighborhood, you know? Like where, like when I heard Biohazard, like I'm in Staten Island, they mentioned Staten Island in the song. It was just like, they talked like people from my neighborhood. Bobby reminded me of this kid, Anthony, that was in my neighborhood. Like it just felt like the place to be. That was right around the time that they filmed the Punishment video. Like they filmed it maybe like a month after that. So like what you see in that Punishment video is like basically the scene that I walked into. Like when the Punishment video came out, I was like, oh shit, these are all those people at all those shows.
That's why I didn't realize this, but that Punishment video, there was a lot of I think Isaac was in it. I think, was it Victor Life?
Victor Life was in it, yeah.
And I didn't know this until like, I'm talking about within the last 5 years. I heard it on a podcast somewhere. I went back and watched the video, and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, oh, I was pointing at the video, and I was like, oh shit, that's this person. That's that person, man.
Bulldog started at that video shoot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Chris, the drummer, he was there, and that's where he met Kevin and told him that, you know, they had a band called Retribution, which was Bulldog's before Kevin. Like Puda would sing and play bass at the same time, but he didn't want to sing anymore. So he was like, so Chris told him like, hey, we're looking for a singer. And it was at that Biohazard video shoot that it all started.
Wow, man. See, exclusive. So Bulldoze started at the Punishment video shoot.
I feel like that whole wave of hardcore that came out, of New York hardcore that came out at that time, like was like an offshoot of that video. Cause it's like, you know, you had Marauder, you had Crown of Thorns, you know, so it was just like, that video was like the launching of everything.
So that was about 92, 93?
92, yeah. The show I went to was September 11th, 92. Because I always like look at it like, because Rabies died exactly like 5 years later. So like my first 5 years in hardcore, like that's how I like look at it, like between those dates.
Once you was like immersed in the scene, what was the New Jersey hardcore scene like back then? Were there any particular bands that were killing it? What were your influences?
That's when I was like just moved to New Jersey too. I had come from the Staten Island first, and then I went there, and so I didn't really know about much what was going on in New Jersey. But before I had a hardcore band, I was in a metal band. It was actually my sister's boyfriend that was the singer of the band. Everyone was like 10 years older than me. I was 15, and we had a show opening for the Bad Brains at Studio One.
Oh,
and
shit.
I still didn't know too much about who the Bad Brains were. I knew they were like a legendary band, but I hadn't heard them yet. I didn't understand why. It's not like you could just go look them up on the internet, you know? That show was with Bloodline, Retribution, you know, who was Bulldoze, Strength, and like all the bands that wound up being like that scene. And we went on first, and you know, people don't like metal bands when you're hardcore, when you play it at a hardcore show. So they definitely didn't like us. I had written like one hardcore song because I was trying to take like the band in that direction. I was like, all right, when we play that song, everything's going to be great, but it wasn't. And so, and then like the band was like getting nervous. They were like, I think we should leave, you know, like I think these people want to kill us or whatever. I was like, no, come on, let's hang out. Like, oh, actually before that, I saw the Bad Brains sound check at least, which was like great. They like blew me away. I was like, holy shit. It wasn't with HR though. It was when they had Israel, but they were still great. Yeah, so we left, but it kind of just like made me interested in like those other bands playing, because I'd see them like on all the there was this paper that came out weekly called The Aquarian, and it would list all like the shows coming out, and it was like those same bands like every week. So it kind of made me want to find out more about those bands. And then there was this band called The Human Offense, and I had actually gone to high school with the drummer, but he'd already graduated, and I really liked them a lot. And then I guess VOS, which is really One for One, was like the first Jersey band I guess I got really into outside of The Human Offense. One for One came from this band VOS. So Dan was the singer, and Mike, the bassist, he was the bassist. And then they had these two other guys, Chris Shannon and Jim King. They went on to be in that band UXB that was on the New York's Hardest Comp. And then they were also in that band Demon Speed. And some of the songs that are on the three of the songs from the One for One demo were VOS songs. And so, yeah, I was really into them. And then I got into Strength. Bulldoze, although it was called New York Hardcore, Kevin was the only one from New York. The Studio One scene that came into it was like Bulldoze, Bloodline, this band IDK, who was like, I guess they were like pop punk, but before it was like pop punk, they still like a harder edge to it. They were really good. Those were like the main bands of that Studio One scene at that time.
How did One for One actually start then? Whose idea was it? Who came up with the name? How did you start drumming for them?
It was February 1994, and I was in a band called Push Too Far. Actually, I had another band with Dan and, you know, Mike, One for One, and Chris, who wound up later being in Fat Nuts and then on In Search of CD for One for One, and Andy, called One Family. So we had all like been playing together already. Like, so everyone in that band was at One for One in a later point. And so we all were already familiar with jamming with each other. So then Dan just calls me up one day. He's like, yo, do you want to play drums for VOS? And I was like confused. I'm like, what happened? He's like, they wanted to kick me out. They wanted to get like a more metal singer and go in a more metal direction. But Mike wanted to be hardcore. So Mike and Dan were just like, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to stay hardcore. And so it was originally just to fill in for this one show that they had coming up on February 19th. Ray, who wound up being our guitarist, he was in a band called Hard Knocks. And actually the songs, two songs from the One for One demo came from that band. And so we had just a few days to like get this all together to play that show. So we were booked under VOS. A lot of our early shows were booked under VOS because it was just like finishing up the remaining shows that they had. So when we came out at that first show, we had no name. Dan just got the name from his address. His address was 414 East Lincoln Avenue, and he was just like looking at it, and he just flipped the numbers around.
Oh, dope, man.
Yeah.
That's a sick name as well. Did VOS have the same sort of sound as One for One then?
Yes and no. Like, because the dude that played drums, he is an incredible drummer. And like, I was intimidated by this guy's drumming. Like, he was just
like technically on point.
Yeah. They had a little bit more of a progressive edge to them. The drummer and the guitarist. And so I definitely could not play things the way he plays them. But I think me doing it in my more hardcore style made it what it was, you know?
Yeah, yeah. When we was all getting into hardcore, that 1-for-1 sound was what I personally was really into. It kind of mixed. It was old school, but it had the heavy parts in there. Do you know what I mean? It had the dark parts in there, man. And that's where I took a lot of my influences from. I don't know about Steve or Lewis. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
The first time I heard about 1-for-1, I think I must have been around DBS's, and he put it on his it must have come up on his, what's it called, on his iPod or whatever it is at the time, like on the shuffle. And it was that Committed for Life tune that's on In Search Of. I think that's the first full length. And when I heard it, just like the intro to the tune and then obviously the heavy breakdowns as well, I was like, damn, this band sounds like, it sounds like, I didn't know they were from New Jersey, but it sounded like a New York hardcore band. But there was just a little, there was, you know, obviously New York hardcore got that particular sound, but this band sounded like a New York hardcore band, but it had just like a bit much of a different edge. And then there was that other tune, My Time, and like for an intro with the bass lick. I mean, obviously we might talk about this album in a bit, but the intro to that, like for me, it's probably one of the best intros with a bass to start off a song. So after that, I was like, obviously a lot of the stuff is out of print. I think I managed to actually get a 7-inch here, but everything else, obviously CD wise, and that obviously you can't get anymore. So I was just literally just checking them out on YouTube for a good amount of time. And obviously Pelby used to post up a lot of 1-for-1 stuff on the Facebook, and Matty Bar as well. He's big time into 1-for-1. So like, yeah, that's how I basically got into the band, just off the back of you older guys just being into it. Like, so yeah, I'm thankful. Yeah,
we're definitely going to jump into the album a bit later on, but Seth, like, can you describe when you started writing songs for 1-for-1, what type of style was you looking for?
We were not all on the same page, so a lot of it was like a compromise. Like, you know, I first got into like all the Biohazard and stuff, but then as I got into hardcore, started going to shows, I started going back into the 80s and really getting into like the fast, old school stuff. And I really like fast. And so I was looking for that, you know, fast and then the big, heavy breakdown. And so me and Dan and Mike were more into like a lot of the older school stuff. Ray had a completely different idea for his vision on guitar. He was more into like that groovier stuff. Like I'm a lot more raw. He's a more like cleaner and tighter. He was looking to go, like, you know, he wound up forming Agents of Man. And so he was kind of looking to go in that direction when 1-for-1 started. And you could kind of, you know, hear it in the guitar work. So, you know, a lot of it was just like us shooting down each other's ideas, you know, and then what comes out is what comes out, you know?
Yeah.
The demo was a little different though, because a lot of the demo songs were written before the band started, and we just kind of made them our own, because like the only song that was new for the 1-for-1 demo was Control.
Okay, man, that's an interesting point about, you know what, when you're in a band and everyone's got conflicting ideas, I hate it. Like, you think the song should go this way, the other person thinks the song should go that way, but I think sometimes compromising brings out the best in the song, because it's like a blend of ideas rather than just one person's vision.
Me and Ray, we can't be in a band together. It can't happen. Like, we're friends. I can hang out with him anytime, you know, like put us in a room in a studio together. No, it's not going to work.
Oh, really? So like it's gone past the compromising phase.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, because we got back together in 2007 for a little bit. And we're like, all right, you know, we're older now. We could do this, you know, like, but we could not. We got that one song out, and it took us a long time just to squeeze that out. We're like, all right, we're going to go through a whole nother year of this and maybe get one more song now.
From London's very own Ironed Out comes the brand new album, We Move As One. Featuring Pavement Strong, Pagans, Crazy Old World and a re-recorded version of ACAB, We Move As One is a 12-track dose of reality straight from the Big Smoke. Down for Life magazine calls it some of the most interesting and exciting music in hardcore right now. Pick up your copy on CD or crystal clear vinyl from the Ironed Out Big Cartel, from gsrmusic.com or from ruction.com.
But anyway, so the 1-for-1 7-inch, how did you get the link with RPP? I mean, with it being a Belgium-based label, and this was pre-internet, you know, communication was a lot harder back then. So how did that come about?
So our first two shows were at Studio One, and then our next show was March 20th, 94. in Long Island at the Right Track Inn, and Alain was at that show.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, he was at that show and he saw us, and then he contacted Dan, and then they were in touch through letters for a while. But that's how it all happened.
Oh wow, man! When In Search Of came out, man, like again, I had that on rotation non-stop, man. What was it like putting that album together? I know you said when you first got together you clashed heads. Did you have the same problem with writing In Search Of?
We didn't have the same problems, but we definitely had a lot of problems because there had been a lot of lineup changes by the time we got to the CD. So me and Dan are the only original members on the CD, but I had left the band for a while and I had just come back. But it was like maybe like almost a year I was out of the band, and that's when like Fat Nuts really started going. So we put out the 2 Fat Nuts 7 inches in between that time. The In Search Of lineup is Fat Nuts, but with Dan singing.
It's funny you say that because I was listening to some Fat Nuts stuff on YouTube and I played bass in a band called Ironed Out. And what I loved about the bass sound on Fat Nuts is you had that kind of weird flangey kind of effect on it, like do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And I loved it, man. I loved it. So what you're saying, yeah, with it being the same band members, it all makes sense now.
Yeah, it's like there are a bunch of alive. Like first I left, and then they had another drummer for a while, and then and they had a different drummer and a different second guitarist, and then that drummer and guitarist left, and then Kenny from E-Town Concrete actually replaced that guitarist that he was playing with us for a while, and that's when I joined the band. So it was like me, Kenny came on guitar, I brought Chris with me on bass. We played like one show that we got together really quick. We started writing with Kenny, and then E-Town told him like, you got to make a choice, you know, and so he stayed with E-Town. You know, but it just started to be like, you know, conflicting shows and stuff, you know. And so then when Kenny left, we brought Shaggy in. But the thing was, they had already planned to record this CD before I even rejoined the band. But now, like, we have to get a lineup together really quick, and everyone has to learn the songs really quick, and we have to record in a few days, and we have like a limited budget. And then Andy wound up having to go to the hospital, and so even though he wrote songs on it, he didn't actually play on the CD, so it's all Shaggy on guitar, but he had just learned a lot of the songs. So like I actually hate that CD.
Oh, really?
Not because of the songs, because I know how much better everything sounded a month later.
Yeah.
You know? And it just kills me that's not the recording that we did. Yeah. I like the way the songs that were new for the CD came out, but the songs that were from like the demo and the 7-inch that we re-recorded, we didn't have time to like properly learn them.
Yeah.
Because like the title track was actually originally a Fat Nuts song that I never wrote lyrics for yet. So we're like, all right, well, we could use this one. And I had no idea what to do with it. And like, you know, I think Dan is great at coming up with like vocal lines and stuff. So I was like, well, I'll let him deal with that one. Voice of Reason, I love that song. Andy wrote that song. So like those songs I thought came out good. Committed for Life came out good. But like it would have been better if we had more time to get the older songs down.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny, like, I've recorded so much stuff, right, that I listen back to it and I fucking hate it. I'm like, oh, the guitar's wrong or the speed's too fast. And other people say to me, oh, I love that song or I love this song. And I'm like, I absolutely hate it. So I'm the same with you when it comes to listening back to stuff, man. Steph, did you do much touring with One for One?
I mean, we always played like locally, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Like we went as far down as Virginia and as far north as Montreal. We did Montreal with Warzone, and that was one of our best shows with that lineup. But then I wound up joining 25 to Life not too much long after, and so I wound up I couldn't do both bands anymore. It was just you know, it wasn't fair to them because they had to cancel shows if I had to go away. So like, or find someone to fill in. So I had to leave.
Before we get into 25 to Life, I was just going to ask you, like, what were some of your favourite places to play? Because over here, we used to always hear about Wetlands or Coney Island, CBGB's.
Number one, definitely Studio One, because that was like our home base, and like that place was huge. It would fit like 2,000 people. They had like big shows there, like Sepultura played there, like when Chaos AD came out. Merciful Fate played there. Like that's where like Fear Factory, Obituary would play. That's where like Biohazard, like the big Biohazard shows, Life of Agony, Dog Eat Dog. So we geared our shows like toward like making that dance floor move. Like, I mean, we geared our songs we were writing. Like that was the whole goal, like, was to get that place with 2,000 people to open up from front to back. And when it did happen at Studio One, it was just like a beautiful thing. Like just people just violently killing each other. Like,
there's a couple of videos on YouTube, 141 playing that Studio One, and just seeing people how they were just throwing like off the stage. It was kind of, there was a barrier there where you had people who working at the venue on one side of it, but the singer could actually get close to obviously pass the mic along and that, but just seeing people just jump off into the crowd, and it was just incredible. Like, and slam dancing as well, obviously of that time and that style was just like nuts.
2,000 people. I mean, would that be like a festival or?
Oh well, no. I mean, it didn't fill up like that every night. Like, when a big metal band would play, though, that's what it could do. Like Life Agony, Dog Eat Dog was packed, but like a regular hardcore show with like just regular hardcore bands, you'd probably have maybe 100, 200. It'd be a lot of space.
It'd be a lot of space, man.
There's a lot of death metal shows there too, and so there were a lot of kids that like were going, like they go to every death metal show and every hardcore show. We were just like always there, like that was our spot. Oh, and the Barrier, though, that was only one show that the Barrier was there for. I don't know why they put it there.
Oh, okay.
You know what? There was a kid that got killed at a Life of Agony show in Brooklyn, but it was the bouncer. The bouncer threw this kid off the stage and he landed on his neck. After that, a lot of clubs got nervous about getting like sued and stuff. So that show was right after that kid got killed. I think that was the only show that they had it.
But just a quick sidebar, going back to what Lewis was saying about New York hardcore. To me, it always seemed like New Jersey and New York hardcore was one of the same thing. Am I right in saying that, or?
It depends who you say that.
Is that now? I don't want to offend anyone out there if I've said something offensive, but that's how it felt to me. It felt, I know New Jersey's its own place and New York's the same place, but it seemed like a lot of the bands kind of intermingled with each other more than other scenes.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's close, like especially North Jersey, like the Studio One scene. That was Newark, which is 20 minutes from Manhattan. So a lot of people from New York would come. There were a lot of different scenes in Jersey, though. There was also like a big straight edge scene throughout like a lot of the state. I felt like that was different than the Newark scene, like the Newark scene was much more violent, much more related to what was going on in New York. And then there was the Shore scene, which was like Furia 5's home territory. And that was a nice violent scene too. But those guys would always come up to our scene too. Like I always saw those guys in Newark and everything.
All right. So there was never like no beef or anything like between New Jersey. Because when I mentioned it, you laughed. So was there any sort of like any tension between the two scenes at any point, or was it always all love?
Oh no, it's just busting chops. I mean, a lot of guys that are like known for being New York guys are really, Jersey,
I always find that weird because, like, and I'm not digging no one out. Like, I don't want no one to listen to this and feel like I'm digging them out. But you get people that live outside of London, but then call their band London Hardcore. But I think it's cool to associate your name with New York because it gives you that platform straight away.
Yeah, I mean, when we played Canada for the first time, we get up there and the flyers all say New York Hardcore. We're like, New York Hardcore. Yeah. We didn't make this, but I guess the promoter felt that was the better way to go. And then the same thing happened for some of the shows we played in Europe. I'm like, all right, like I'm not going to complain because I'm from New York anyway, and my loyalty will always be to New York because that's where I grew up. Because I didn't go to Jersey till high school, but I still have loyalty to New Jersey. Like if New York, this is New Jersey, I'll defend New Jersey and vice versa. But I know people from New York like just hate New Jersey. They don't really hate the people from New Jersey, but like,
come on, let's get it out, Seth. Come on, yeah.
but it's all love. It's just busting chops, A lot of those people live in New Jersey now, like the New York people that, busted on Jersey. So,
in the sense of branding, obviously, when hardcore first sort of like took off, obviously you had DC, you had Boston, you had New York. So, obviously, the bigger cities and the ones that sort of where it started are the ones that more people are going to gravitate to, especially sort of like worldwide. So once you've got something which is worldwide and people from, say, the UK or from Germany or from France, and then the US band goes over, they just automatically think, oh, they're a New York hardcore band because they sound like this particular sort of style or this sound. Because Richie mentioned it recently as well on a podcast.
Let's make a podcast.
Where he was saying...
Big up.
He mentioned when he went over with Crutch, they had New York hardcore at the bottom, and they were like, what the fuck, man? We're PA hardcore, you know what I'm saying? So most people probably just associate that everything is coming out of New York at the time, and obviously that's not the truth, because obviously New Jersey had some great bands, and bands in Pennsylvania as well had some heavy hitters as well, but just one of those things, isn't it? Like, is that the tri-state, New York, New Jersey, and PA?
I think, or it might be Connecticut and not PA, I forget. I think it's Connecticut.
I think it's
you could be. You could
is
be
it?
Right. I don't know. Sometimes I know, and then I forget, and I get them switched all the time. But another thing too is like New Jersey bands weren't really calling themselves New Jersey, as far as I know. A lot of the bands that were from New Jersey, they called themselves New York. But then in the early '90s, like Studio One bands were like proud to be New Jersey. Like NJ Bloodline put that NJ in their name. That was a big deal, because people weren't really representing Jersey like that. And one of my good friends, Uncle Mark, rest in peace, we'll call him the godfather of New Jersey hardcore. As far as I know, he's the first person to get NJHC tattooed on him. He was like the one I always remember, just like going around like NJHC, like bringing it to New York, and like kind of like making everybody like proud to say they're from New Jersey, and then of course Fury of Fire put out that song, Taking Respect and everything. So then people started becoming more proud of New Jersey, and Mark was like the one that like he's from Elizabeth. He was the founder of E-TAC, E-Town Assault Crew. Him, my friend Willie, they were in a band called Hard Knocks, and so like they brought the E-Town guys around, and so like then E-Town, of course, very proud of New Jersey and of E-Town, I feel like that's where like New Jersey kind of became its own thing, like that period.
Also, big up Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen.
Just a quick story. I remember my first time going to New York, and I flew into Newark, and I come out the airport. I don't know, I got the wrong bus, I got lost, and some dude comes up to me and goes, "Where are you trying to get to, man?" And I'm like, Manhattan. And he goes, "You need to get out of here because you'll get shot." And I was like, "Okay, thank you, man." Welcome to Newark. I want to ask you, man, like, so you was in 1 for One, then you decided to start Fat Nuts, which you sung in, and then you 25 to Life. So can you just explain that timeline? How did Fat Nuts start? Why did you decide, what did you want to get into singing? And the 25 to Life, just how did that whole process start with you being in the band?
A lot of it was kind of like overlapping and gradual. Fat Nuts started September of '94. We were trying out second guitars, and Shaggy came down to try out. At that time, the demo had just come out and he didn't have it yet, so he only knew the VOS demo, so he only knew one song that we were playing, the song No. And so he jammed that with us. And when he didn't know any of the other songs, he's like, "Hey, you guys know any Cro-Mags songs?" And I was just like, "Yeah." So we just started jamming Cro-Mags songs. And I was like, "All right, I want this guy." The rest of the band wanted to go with someone else. And, like that was like the direction I wanted to go in, like that more old school stuff. And I was like, you know what? They don't want to go with you, but let's do something. We'll do something like old school, like me and you. We'll do another band. Fuck it, right? And then he brought in Brian, who sings for Homicidal. He was our first bass player, but he don't really play bass, so that didn't really work out. But that's how I met Brian. And then Andy, who was the guitar player from 1 for One, he came in on bass for like a minute, and I forget what happened there. Then we got Chris. It was just the three of us on the demo. Actually, I was originally just playing drums, and it was kind of like a continuation of the band Push Too Far I was in, although not musically, but we had that singer singing originally, and we had written like a couple of songs. We'd written the song Understand, and then we wrote some other songs that really weren't so great and got dropped before we recorded anything. It was just like us starting the writing process. And then it was when we wrote the song Rise Above, and I wrote the lyrics for that I was just like, I'm singing this. It wasn't really working out with the singer. I was like, we'll find a drummer instead. I posted it on YouTube this year, last year now. Yeah,
I saw all the 7 inches and stuff, and I saw some live clips and stuff.
Yeah, it was like a spontaneous set we did in the basement of Studio One, and we were doing all covers and stuff. And then so like I started singing The Truth, and like I just got into it. I was like, you know what? I want to sing. And then I remember one day I was going for a job interview. I remember my car door was broken, and it was like hanging off by like a rope. The heat wasn't working, and it was freezing. It was in December. And I got stuck in traffic, and then I wound up missing the interview, and I was just like fucking mad as hell sitting in traffic, and I was listening to United Blood, screaming every word, and everyone sitting in traffic is like looking at me like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? And that was when I made the decision, like, yeah, I'm singing for this thing.
Everyone but us. Straight from the heart of London.
Let's talk about 25 to Life, man. How did that come about then?
That was kind of gradual too, because I was a big 25 to Life fan. I remember my friend Andy heard them first. Like I'd see them on flyers when they were first starting, and then they played the Life of Agony record release party, and VOS actually played that show, but I didn't go. But my friend Andy came home. He's like, "Yo, you got to see 25 to Life. They're fucking great. You got to check this band out." And then 4 days later, they were playing. Listen to this show. You're gonna be bugged out when you hear that this show is empty.
Yeah, hit me, man, hit me.
It was Sick of It All, Warzone, Marauder, 25 to Life, Roguish Armament, and then like this jam of like guys from Biohazard. I remember it was like Evan, Bobby, I think Billy, but I forget who was on drums. And they were just doing like Minor Threat covers. It was really cool. And like, yeah, there was nobody there. Warzone went on first, right? And nobody danced. This was my first time seeing one. I mean, there was barely anyone there, but I was like 16. I'm like, you know, younger, and like there's all these older guys. So I didn't want to be like the guy to like set it off. I was still like new and nervous. And like nobody danced for Warzone because this was like, they had a little bit of a like period because like, you know, they did that third album and they went like a different style.
Yeah,
and like
people were like, yeah.
Then they had to like build back. So this was like the beginning of them like coming back. Yeah, and I just couldn't believe it because I loved Warzone and I like wanted to go crazy. I just didn't understand. I was like, why is no one moving? And then 25 came on and I was like, yo, this is fucking great. I thought Rick sounded like Obituary, you know, and I was like, this is like and it's like death metal. Well, this is before he was like that. He didn't really get to that until like later. Like I wish he never did do that. You know, like, his voice definitely changed. Like, you know, his Agnostic Front went on tour with Obituary, and Rick was a roadie, like the One Voice tour. And then, so I guess like, he was just like, I'm going to rip off Obituary, and I'm going to rip off Roger, and my whole life is going to be based on everything I saw on this new tour.
I can hear Roger Merritt in some of his early stuff, especially Coming Correct. You can hear that Roger Merritt influence. But yeah, sorry, carry on, man.
I met Rick that day. I bought a demo off of him. And then I started going to a lot of the shows. And so like, you know, I got to know him a little bit. And then one day we went to go see, it was Life of Agony, 25 to Life and Sub-Zero at the Grand. It was December 29th, 93. And then we were coming home and it was just me and the two kids I went with. And then Rick was just by himself on the train. And we were like, oh shit, what's up? I gave him a demo with the band Push Too Far in it, had my number on it, and then he called me up asking like, you know, if we wanted to do shows. Then he started hooking 1 for 1 up with shows, and so like I was kind of just always around every 25 to Life show. And then it was November 19th, 1994. It was a 1 for 1 Bulldoze 25 to Life and Lost in the System in upstate New York, and 25 to Life didn't show up. Like Rick showed up, and the band wasn't there. I don't know what the reason was. It might have been that he didn't tell them. I don't know. But they weren't there. And so like we put something together like really quick, and that's where it started. And like we were shuffling around. It's on YouTube.
So you played that show?
Yeah, that was where it started.
Okay.
And then we did it again at Studio One when the same thing happened in the basement of Studio One with even more songs. So it was like me on drums for some. Like we switched around. I played bass on a song. I played guitar on a song. And then Chris from Bulldoze played drums on some songs. And then Mike, 1 for 1, was playing bass. Then after that, he calls me up like maybe 2 months later and he's like, yo, Harry can't make it this weekend. Can you do these shows? The show started the next day. So I had to learn the songs really quick. And so I learned like all those songs. So then I started filling in a lot. But then Rick started doing all these other things that he shouldn't have been doing. I didn't know that the band didn't know, but there were shows that if the band couldn't make it, he would still play anyway. One time it was like me and Mike. Jay Fury was on guitar. Actually, we did a couple of shows like that with Jay Fury on guitar. Yeah, so then by the time Harry left the band for real, I knew all the songs. And I was the regular fill-in drummer for a while. So it was kind of just like natural.
So he was like booking shows that he knew the band couldn't do?
I think he would book the show before finding out if they could. I don't know with him, you know, like, yeah, he's he's I don't know what's wrong with him.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, but he made it seem like, you know, like the band wouldn't have a problem with it, you know. But
was there a point when you was officially? When did you officially become the 25 to Life drummer? Was that a conversation, or you just kept on playing and it just?
Well, Harry left the band in November of '96.
Harry was a founding member of 25 to Life, right?
Yeah, he's the original drummer. He played on the demo, the 7-inch, Keeping It Real, and New York's Hardest. And so, yeah, he left in November, and then Rick just called me up. And this is when I was back in One for One, and this was like right after we did the In Search of record release party. He's like, "You want to record a record with us and go to Japan and join 25 Live?" I was like, "Yes, I do." I didn't even think about it, I was like, yeah, but I wasn't like officially in the band yet. I was still like technically like just like filling in for a moment. And then like 2 months later, like, they pulled me to the side and they were like, you want to do it for real? And, cause I was going to have to leave One for One to do that, and so I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
How was that conversation with One for One? Did the lads like, yeah, go for it? Was they a bit pissed off with you?
They were understanding. They already had like fill-in drummers for the shows, like when were booked on the same day. So it's not like they, were left stranded.
I remember the first time hearing 25 to Life was spoken about this on previous shows, but I used to just go to record stores and we would just pick CDs based on what the cover looked like. Oh, this looks kind of hardcore. This looked like this particular style. And I think Raymond, the drummer from Knuckle Dust, he must have come across the 25 to Life CD in some store somewhere. So we came home, we played it. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, I didn't exactly know what hardcore was sound wise. 1 minute I thought it was fast. Another time I'd think it was slow. But then the more I listened to it, the more I started to get it.
I've got a feeling for me, it might have been Strength for Unity. Maybe.
For me, it was the New York Hardcore documentary on the VHS.
Of course.
How
can we forget that?
That's when I first obviously I knew about Madball and AF and a couple of other bands, but hearing Crown of Thorns and 25 to Life, I was like, I need to find these fucking bands fucking releases soon, man. But it was just Rick's interview. He came across weird, but he was also kind of very charming as well. So I could see why a lot of people, and he'd done a lot for the scene back then. Obviously, yeah, he's a bit of a pariah and a bit of a weird guy now and shit, but back then he was just out there just putting out different bands and just wanting to just spread the gospel of hardcore. But obviously he did have very questionable practices as well and shit. I remember buying a fucking CD from him at the Underworld when they came over and they played with that Argentinian band Nueva Etica. I think it was like 2008 or something. And he was all fucking fat and shit. And I was like, oh shit, it's Rick to Life, man. Like fucking, I was stoked, man. Cause you see someone like watching,
yeah,
he was to watch the shit out of that fucking video. So then when I actually saw him, and this is, I think, after, all the shit, I think it might have been before all the shit that went down, obviously, when he went through his mental health episode. But yeah, I bought the CD and I was like, oh, so stoked to get home, looked at it. I got it home, I opened it up and it was like, A4 bit of paper and the fucking CDR, and I was like, "What the fuck's this?" Like, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is how it is, cool." But then years later, hearing stories like, yeah, he would just print off a fucking cover and just fucking burn CDs and sell them at fucking full price. And yeah, I paid full price for it. So, but still, it was still listenable. It wasn't fucked up or anything. But yeah, that was the New York Hardcore documentary is my introduction to a lot of great bands, and that was definitely one of them, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my first correspondence with Rick was, because one thing I would say is that Rick put me onto a lot of music, man. He put me onto Fat Nuts. He put me onto Crutch, E-Town. I've got all them 7 inches in my house, like, and back then when I sent the money, my vinyl, it could take 2-3 months, but it did eventually turn up. Do you know what I mean? Getting back to 25 to Life, I was going to say, so when you joined, what was that? Did you end up doing the tour in Japan?
Yeah. It was the most incredible leaving the state experience that I've ever had. Like, it was just like the shows were like packed. It's like, we play some big shows out here, but like we go out there and it was just like a whole another level. Like the last show we played in Tokyo was so packed that we couldn't even go inside the club until it was time to play because there was just nowhere, not even like backstage. It was just like mobbed.
Really?
And, they were just, and it was different there. Like just being there was crazy because it's like I had never left the continent before. So the only other country I'd been to was Canada, which is very like the United States. So just being in a different country was crazy for me, and it was like traveling into the future for me. Like they were just like so technologically, and, like everyone had cell phones in '97.
Yeah, that's wild.
Shit.
You know?
Yeah.
And then we get there, and it was like it's a different culture. Like we grab a magazine off the street, and like we open it up, and like we're in it, you know. And then like there's like advertisements, like in the regular like events going on, you know, that like we're playing, and they're like everywhere. It's like it felt like we were like a mainstream act almost, you know. We didn't want to go home, and like I had signed I think 2 autographs before I went to Japan in my life. And then we get out there, and there's people like waiting on lines, and we had to like devote like a serious amount of time to it. And I was just like, is this really happening? Like this is just like bugged out.
How many people we talk? Well,
they weren't like big clubs, so like I guess I'm overstating when I say mainstream. I'm just saying because it was like in the regular papers and stuff. That's why I was like thinking that, like the regular magazines. But you know, like the first show was probably like a few hundred, like 400, 500. But it was a small place, and it was like packed, and they were going nuts. Then the second show was in Osaka, and that was a much bigger club, so we didn't pack it, but it was a lot of people. This club, Bayside Jenny, and that was like a big club that like mainstream acts were going. I remember Foxy Brown was playing there like 2 days later, and that was their Super Bowl of hardcore. That show was incredible, and me and Fred started violent dancing out there, like because when we got out there, it was different. Like everyone would just like jump up and down, you know, like they weren't like going nuts. And then like so the first night, like I was like, yo, let's dance like we dance. And everyone's like, no, we can't do that. You know, like they don't do that here. And then like, but I just wanted to do it, you know? And I'm like, all right. So then the next day, I remember one of the bands did a Killing Time cover. Like I ran out front, I started going crazy. But then I told like Fred, I was like, yo, let's just dance. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So we just started dancing. Like we dance at shows in New York. And everyone was just like loving it. Everyone just like backed up. And they were like pointing, and then they just started copying. And then next thing you know, like the whole club was doing it, and it was the most incredible thing. Like,
that's sick.
Yeah, we were calling it Fantasy Island.
That's amazing. I'm gonna get a T-shirt with that. Let's dance. Was that Let's Dance the Way We Dance? I want that on a T-shirt.
That's one of my things, man. To play Japan one day, man. If it just happens once. I just want to be able to see another side of the world and play a show in a different continent. Like, and I think Japan will be the perfect place to do that.
One day it will happen. One day it will happen, God willing.
I hope so.
But just talking about Fred, like, I've just got to give that guy props. He is an amazing riff writer, man.
Oh, yeah.
All that classic 25 to Life stuff. He wrote most of the riffs, am I right in saying?
Most of them. I mean, I wasn't there for the demo. Like, I know Frank, the original bass player, had a large role in a lot of the riffs on the demo and a lot of the early stuff too. But I mean, Fred definitely wrote a lot of it. While I was in the band, you know, Fred wrote almost every riff. Actually, I should say during that period, because the more recent lineup is still mostly Fred though. But like some other guys wrote riffs too. Beto wrote the song "Violence Fate" and "The Hate." I wrote Absence of Sincerity. That was actually a Fat Nuts song originally. And then Mike wrote one riff on that album in the song Make It Work. But Fred wrote every other riff.
I know Beto's guitar for that harmonic squeal that he does.
That was one of the things that really turned me on to the band. I mean, I was into the band already when he joined. But when I first heard him doing that, I was just like, you know, like, what is that? How do you do that? And like, you know, I had him teach me how to do that. Like, he's the one that taught me how to do dive bombs, you know? I learned a lot about guitar being in 25 Life. Because me and Beto we would live in Jersey. And then Fred and Warren lived in Manhattan and Queens. So they would usually like go in one car, and then me and Beto would be in another car going to shows. And so like we just talk guitar. Fred's a master riff writer, and I love the way their two sounds blend together. And I was a big fan of that before I joined the band. So like having the opportunity to write beats with them was an opportunity I could not pass. You have no idea how Fred, like you're only getting like 5% of the riffs he actually writes when you hear the songs. Like he just nonstop, like awesome riff after awesome riff. He has like a zillion hours of riffs on hard drives at his house. There's just so many. Yeah, he's one of the best riff writers that you could find.
25 to Life. What did you actually record with 25 to Life then? Studio wise.
Strength to Unity.
Classic.
And New York's Hardest 2.
Strength of Unity was so good. Like, Keeping It Real was such a classic. I didn't think it could be topped, but Strength of Unity, man, if not close, it could be slightly better. What do you guys think, Lewis and Steve?
I tend to, I'm kind of on that cusp as well, actually.
I just, for me, I think Keeping It Real, man, is just some of the tracks on there just sound hot. They just don't know what it is, man. Obviously, it's just that raw edge in it, but yeah, Keeping It Real for me. When
did you actually leave 25 to Life? Because 25 to Life was at the pinnacle. Like, you guys were massive, man. So what happened then? Why did you end up leaving 25 to Life?
Rick was very difficult. There are a lot of issues going on before I joined the band, so that's why people had been leaving. In the 90s, no one ever got kicked out of 25 to Life. Everyone left, and everyone pretty much left for the same reason, dealing with the same person. And so when I joined, I was very excited to join the lineup that I was joining. Actually, one thing I hate about Strength of Unity is the fact that Beto is not on it, and Warren should have been on it too. Like, we had a really solid lineup. So we went to California in May of that year, and the band had a big fight because Rick canceled all these good shows that we had, so he could book all these DIY shows and make all the money with his merch and all his different stuff. And he wanted to keep everything in the smaller places instead of the bigger clubs. But he didn't tell the band he was doing this, so we went out there thinking we were having these certain shows. And then we got out there and it was all different shows. And then half of the tour was canceled and half the band quit on that tour. And that's when I convinced Mike from One for One to join. So he joined for 6 weeks, but then he saw what was going on with Rick. Actually, the day before we recorded Strength of Unity, we were coming back from Europe and me and Rick got in a fight in the airport. What happened was Come Correct was supposed to play at Europe too, and they were all supposed to fly out. But instead, Rick just found some people in Europe to play the Come Correct songs, so he wouldn't have to pay for the airfare. And so we're at the airport on the way back, sitting at Burger King. He was just like, "Yeah, I pulled that off." He's like, "Yo, they don't care as long as I'm there. That's all anyone cares about." And so I was like, "Yo, so you're trying to say no one cares about the rest of us? You're trying to say we ain't a band?" Right? He's like, "Yo, it's all about me," And I'm like, "Yo, that's fucked up." He's like, "Yo, you don't like it? Go back to One for One." Right. And I was just like, I didn't want to get in a huge fight there. So I kind of just was like, all right, whatever. So I walked away, but that was it from Mike. Mike didn't say anything, but he was done. The funny thing is Mike didn't leave for another couple of weeks after that, but that's when he kind of knew he was done. So the next day we come home and I thought we had another week to finish writing Strength of Unity because we had 4 songs down and we still needed 3 more. So we were going to take the week off and just write. We had no shows coming up. And I get home at 4 a.m. and then at 7, phone rings. "Yo, we got to record." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Now." He's like, "I got the date wrong. We have to record this album right now." I was like, "We're not even done writing it." Right? He's like, "I'll pick you up in an hour." I'm like, "Fuck." So it's 100 degrees. He drives us to the city and he just leaves us there. And so me, Mike, and Fred are just sitting there what an asshole. Fuck. We got to write these songs now, right? So what we did was we recorded the 4 songs we already had, which was Strength of Unity, Took My Kindness for Weakness, Turning Point, and Loose with the Truth. And then we had to come up with 3 songs. So he had the riff for Loyal to the Grave, and we had an older version of it where it was rhythmically different, but we kind of just reworked it. So we kind of put that one together really quick. We recorded it in a half hour. And that's why it's so short. Since it got to a point where it was just all right, this is good. I was like, all right, I like short songs anyway. So I was like, let's just end the song right here. And then I played guitar on that, Absence of Sincerity. We never played it live because we just had to do it quick. And then we did Make It Work. And then right after, Mike left the band. So we never did those songs live with him until 2018. And so it was just the band wasn't the same band anymore that I had joined. And so I was kind of disappointed, but I was still into it at the same time. Then we got Dave on bass. Dave was a great bassist. Dave was fun to hang out with on tour. And Biohazard took us out on tour, which to me was a big deal. And they had asked us to play, and it was 10 or 11 shows, but it wasn't a continuous tour. It was just weekends. So this was after Biohazard's peak of Urban Discipline. This was 5 years later. They didn't have Bobby on guitar anymore. So the hardcore kids weren't going crazy during their sets like they used to. And so we were just killing it every night because all the hardcore kids would come up smash all the metalheads, and like, you know how it is for like the big crossover shows. And so it was great. And then Rick was selling all his shit. And then on the fourth show, we were playing Connecticut, and Biohazard's management came up to Rick and was like, hey, we don't mind if you sell 25 to Life stuff, but you can't sell all this other stuff. You know, it's like you're cutting into our merch. And then Rick flipped out. He's like, fuck you, then we ain't playing. And then he like walked out, and I was like, yo, fuck that. I was like, we're a band. You don't just say we're not playing and not talk to us. And so I was like, yo, we'll play without you. You know, like we're playing no matter what. You know, if the crowd has to sing, the crowd has to sing, but you know, we're playing this show. So then we play, and on stage, he's like, yo, fuck bands that are sellouts, fuck all bands that go on MTV. And he gets like the crowd riled up, like, and they're like, yeah, fuck those bands. And like, it's pretty obvious who he's talking about. And I'm just like, oh, fucking, you know, we get this great tour with this great band, and he's fucking this up for us. Like every time we want to do something big, he wants to bring it back down to DIY so he can make like hundreds or $1,000 a day, but we're making like $75 a day, $100 a day. So it's like, I can't go on tour and not get paid. So it's like, I can't keep doing this. So right after the set, like I'm carrying the drums outside, and like Evan comes up to me right after. He's like, yo, that is not cool at all, man. And I'm like, you're right. That's fucked up, man. And he's like, yo, why don't you do a new band without him? I'll manage you guys. And I did think about it for a second, but I was just like, I don't know. I was just mad, you know, like we were all just like, yo, what the fuck, man? Like that was not cool at all. And that's pretty much when I knew I was done. I was just like, I left like within a couple of weeks after that. I finished up the shows that I had. I was like, I'll still play with you guys till you get another drummer, because not for Rick, but for, you know, for Fred and Dave, and like, and I really felt for Fred, you know, because you know he started the band. I didn't really want to leave, but I couldn't go on with Rick anymore.
Did Fred stay not too much longer after that himself? Did he?
After I left, they wrote and recorded their first full length album. And then they toured that a lot. Like I know they toured a lot. They went back to Japan again. They did a bunch of Europe tours, and that was going on for a while. And then the band actually broke up, and like that was it. Like, because as far as we were concerned, like, you know, there's no 25 to Life without Fred. Then Rick was just doing like Coming Correct for us. So when the band came back without Fred, it was just because like he decided to call whatever band he had at that moment 25 to Life, because Coming Correct wasn't drawing the same numbers that 25 to Life was.
Everyone but us. Straight from the heart of London.
Every now and again, we know Rick, he has this episode where he goes online and he writes a load of bullshit. But I think you wrote a post, and it was something along the lines of you were kind of defending 25 to Life because you felt that Rick had kind of destroyed his legacy. Do you remember writing that post?
I remember writing several posts of that nature, so I don't know the exact one. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted to get the band back together again, was people didn't know the band like as it was, like what we were. I wanted people to understand it and see it live, hear it, and I think that's what we did, you know.
So whose idea was it to bring 25 to Life back and his mean on vocals? How did that all come about?
Again, it was kind of like gradual. In 2015, I was really high one night, and I remember I was in the shower, and I just like, I was mad and just like thinking about us being a good band and how like, you know, like what could have been, how fucked up it was. And then I started thinking like, what if we had a different singer? And then I just started thinking about it. I was like, wait a second, that could actually. And then I remember I called one of my friends. I was like, what do you think the reaction would be if we did 25 Live and we had a different singer? He's like, you think anyone? He's like, oh, dude, that would be huge. I was like, all right. And then I talked to some of the guys, and yeah, it sounds like a good idea. And then it was the weirdest thing. Like, Joe Hardcore hits me up. This is like maybe a week later, right? And he's just like, yo, fuck it. Why don't you just do 25 Live and get Shaggy to sing? Shaggy, our guitarist from Fat Nuts, that doesn't sing at all. Right? And I told Shaggy that. He's like, me? He's like, what?
Why me?
Yeah. I'm like, but I was like, yo, it's weird that you like are asking me about this, because it's actually something that we thought about like with other singers. And he's like, yo, we'll do this as hardcore. And I was like, all right. But 2015 was a very bad year in my life. I had a lot going on, and so it just wasn't the right time. Then 2016 came around and Rick did that barbecue backyard thing. I'm sure you know about it.
The drum machine.
With a Nazi dude.
Yeah.
Or some.
Yeah, with no drummer, you know.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Which is especially an insult to me because I'm the drummer.
He didn't even call you up for that.
I mean? That's like the most viewed 25 to Life thing. But it's not even 20. He wasn't even billed as 25 to Life, but everyone wants to advertise it as such. And it got like the metal mainstream attention and it's like everywhere. And it was just like, now this is like a band I have to be embarrassed about. You know, and everyone's just like talking shit everywhere. And I'm like, this fucking sucks, you know, and this is the most popular band I was in. And we're just being trashed everywhere. And now it's like worse. And then 2017 comes around and my good friend, Virginia, and you guys know her from the hardcore documentary. She passed away and that hurt. And she was one of my very best friends. Cause like when I first started going to shows, like I met her when I was 16, you know, I wasn't old enough to drive. And so I would take train places or I'd just meet people and like hitch rides with people. There weren't a lot of people traveling then. And she was one of them. And so there was like this period in late 93 where we went to see Life of Agony, like all over, like upstate. And that's where we really like, you know, became good friends and everything. And then like, she was like the first big 25 to Life fan. Like, when she passed, I wanted to watch the New York Hardcore documentary, you know, to see her. And then I was looking at the comments and everyone was just talking shit on 25 to Life. And it just got me mad. And like, it just kind of lit fire under my ass. So I went and posted on Facebook. I was like, Rick is not the singer of 25 to Life. I was like, we're not doing anything, but if we ever did, there would be a different singer. And I left it at that. And that thread just exploded. So like, the first comment was Stickman, I'll sing. And then the second comment, I think, was Joe Hardcore, like, this is Hardcore 2017. One of my friends calls me up. He's like, yo, you got to do this. And I'm like, I don't know. Because I was still kind of like, you know, stressed out mentally over things. And he's like, no, you got to do this. I was like, I don't know. He's like, no, you got it. And like everyone wanted it. And I was talking to Beto and Mike like regularly throughout all the period that I was not in 25 to Life and we weren't doing anything. But Fred was someone that kind of like I would see just more once in a while, like every couple of years. He'd like show up at a show or I talked to him, you know, not as if I hadn't talked to him in a while. So it was really like dependent on Fred. And then finally I just called Fred and he was like totally into it, right? He's like, Stickman wants to sing? And I was just like, yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, so we'll sound really good. I was like, yeah, we're going to sound really good, man. And he's like, yeah. He's like, but let's book a practice first, see how it sounds before we commit to anything. So we booked the practice and, you know, it just worked. You know, it was a good lineup. It was actually the best lineup I ever had any band I was ever in. Like as far as like everybody, like there's no weak links, you know, everybody shows up, everybody's professional. Everyone wants everything to be even between the members, you know, so it was good.
So when did you decide to do the new EP, Hunting Season? It
was just kind of came naturally, like, because the original plan was just to do the one show and that's it. I didn't know what was going to happen. I really had no intention of taking it any further than that. But like once we started jamming, everything was just clicking. And like Fred is just a riff machine. So like, you know, before we start playing songs, he just comes in, he just starts playing riffs. I just start playing beats. Beto starts ripping solos, you know what I mean? Like, so we're just kind of like, it was a good, like a team effort. Like everybody put their parts in and it was good. All Heart was the first one we really all wrote together where everybody in the band wrote like a part of the song and we wrote it in the studio where Hunting Season was kind of like parts were written in the studio, but I'd go to Fred's house and we'd write stuff there too. And then from start to finish, like Fred wrote that like with the like a drum machine at home and like presented it to us.
Are you planning to release any more music? Or are you planning to do more?
Right now, there's like, I don't know what's going on, to be honest. Like, I still talk to the guys, but we haven't talked about like band stuff, you know, just talk about like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, this pandemic has kind of like changed everything. Cause like we were kind of on hiatus since like 2018. I wanted to stop playing shows to focus on new songs. That's what we were doing. But like we had a good run where for like almost a year and a half, everyone was free all the time. We were able to do it. But then people just started having things in their lives and we just couldn't get everyone together at the same time. Then I hurt my wrist and I still don't know if I'm fully recovered because I haven't played drums. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It's been almost I haven't played drums on a set in over 2 years. Everyone just had things going on. It kind of fell apart, but it's not over. It's just, we'll see what happens,
Would there ever be a 1-for-1 reunion?
The In Search of CD is being re-released on vinyl on Age of Venus Records. That's going to be coming out soon. And he's also doing a limited, that's going to be a limited edition, but if it sells well, he's going to press more. And then also a limited 7-inch of the song This Day.
Have you talked about playing again?
1-for-1 is, I don't like to say never, but the odds of one ever playing again are pretty much next to nothing.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Dan will ever sing again. I don't know. I mean, that's what he says, What
about Homicidal? You play bass in Homicidal. Is that, you looking to do any more music with them, or?
I talk to those guys regularly all the time. Like I talked to Brian. I talked to 3 of those guys yesterday, Yeah, we were writing new songs, and then I got together with Mike and we put together 5 new songs. But then it just scheduling became a problem, and we couldn't get everybody together at the same time. So, but maybe at another time.
Who knows, man, with this COVID shit. I'm hoping by summer we'll be back to some kind of normality. But Seth, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on, man. You've been it's been amazing, man. It's been really, really good. I've learned a lot, and yeah, man, I want to let you know that the band you've been in, man, have played a major part in our lives, man. Do you know what I mean? It's been the soundtrack of our lives, some of them songs, man. So big respect to you. I've just got a couple more questions. The first question is, so you play quite a few instruments, isn't it? You play bass, you play piano, drums, guitar. You're like a one-man band over there.
Yeah, I try to be, I started on piano, and then I started drums in the school band when I was 8, and then I started guitar when I was 10, and then bass kind of came later. I never took bass seriously until I joined Homicidal. I do want to play some more instruments too. I just can't where I live now, but I'm planning on buying a house soon. I want to get a trumpet and a cello, and I'm going to try all that stuff.
That's dope.
I also was a music teacher for a while. I was a music minor in college. I was originally a music major, but I'm not social, and they wanted me to play with the kids in school, and I was like, oh no, that's fucking crazy.
I know you play a lot of Mozart stuff as well, because I was checking out your YouTube channel, man, and it was fucking really good. So anyone that's listening to this, go and check out Seth's, is it Homicidal 1?
The number 1, not written out, Homicidal 1.
You got some cool stuff on there, so go and check it out. I've got one final question for you, and we're going to take a bit of a sidestep on this one. I just wanted to have your opinion on a lot of things have happened in America over the last 4 years, from Trump coming in, being impeached a couple of times, to Black Lives Matter, to the storming of Capitol Hill, to Trump leaving the office and Biden coming in. Do you have an opinion on it? If you could summarize the last 4 years in America, what's it been like?
It's difficult. I am very disappointed in a lot of Americans. I mean, obviously, it's not most of us, but the way our Constitution is set up, a minority of the people control everything. It all goes back to when they designed the Constitution. In order to get the slave states to join the Union, they had to give them, the smaller states, more power than they deserve. That still holds true today. So, all these southern states and smaller states have a lot more power than they should, because they have 2 senators from each of those states. And it's like they control us. When you hear Trump speak, it's like, how do you not know that there's something wrong with this? And the amount of people that fell for it. I'm a left-wing guy. I've been a left-wing guy, but right-wing guys in the past, they at least spoke normally. I just don't understand how people saw this guy talk and be like, that's what we need, and it baffles me. And it's crazy, but it's American culture. I'm also not surprised, Americans have always been anti-intellectual.
Our country is kind of going the same way as well now, man. Most of Western Europe is going the kind of the same way. No one cares about what people who have studied or have been involved in a field of theirs for most of their life, from university up until now. That's their craft, and people are like, nope, I don't believe you. I believe the snake oil salesman instead. And that's kind of where we're at the moment, I feel. That's
where that's what I went to school for. My major was political science. And And my father was a political science teacher. So I kind of like really grew up with all of this. You know, it's happened before throughout history. This is how dictators come to power. It's kind of like scary to see the cycle happening again.
I was going to say, how do you see America panning out in the next 4 years? Obviously, it's hard to predict the future, but do you think it's going to go back to business as normal, like before Trump?
I don't know. I don't think it can. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was a turning point, like, for the country, you know, like, especially after, you know, the Capitol riot. That was on my birthday too. That fucking sucked. Too many people believe in things that are just so far away from reality that I don't know how you recover from that. Like, you know,
so you're basically saying QAnon.
Yeah, that's a major part of it. Yeah, absolutely.
We had one of our ministers a couple of years back say people are tired of listening to experts. And people around the country went, yeah, I'm tired of listening to experts. It's like, experts know what they're talking about. Stop, don't listen to that.
You don't have to be a university scholar. I mean, obviously it helps having a good education, but it's that whole anti-intellectualism thing is just dangerous, man. It's really, really dangerous.
People are believing what they want to believe. And I think that's the gist of it. It's scary. You know, some of it like reminds me of like the Capitol riot reminded me of like the 1923 beer hall putsch in Germany when Hitler tried to, you know, take over the government before he was successful. And, you know, that's when he got arrested. It kind of led to them actually taking over, you know, 9 years later. So I'm just hoping that this doesn't, you know, turn into something like that as well. You know, and they did it with a minority of the people taking over the whole. So, and, you know, that's why I was born. Like my grandfather went through that. He had to leave. That's why he came to the United States. I think that helps me see it differently too. He had to leave or like we had family that didn't get out, you know. It kind of just, I don't know. I just feel like it's history repeating itself. And I hope it doesn't go in the same direction.
The people that stormed Capitol Hill, what are they complaining about? What are they fighting for? Do they actually believe that the vote was rigged?
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
they really do.
They really actually believe that, right?
I've seen people like, you know, like regular people that I know, like they believe that it was, you know, stolen. All the lines that these people are saying, people are falling for it. How does it all look to you guys over there, like watching us?
From how I read stuff online and from people who I speak to, not necessarily in the hardcore scene, and some in the hardcore scene, there are a lot of people who actually fuck with Trump and like his style of politics. And I've had conversations with one person who believes that Donald Trump had the election stolen from him. And I asked him, where did you see all this stuff? And he goes, One American News Network and Newsmax and all the super right-wing conservative media types. I mean, I'm not to say that you can't disregard what people are saying on the right, because there are some people on the left who do spout some bullshit as well and fallacies and stuff.
Absolutely.
But the fact that we're now at a point now where people basically turn around and said, oh, Fox News is fucking the enemy now, when they've been one of the biggest cheerleaders of fucking Donald Trump throughout his presidency. So for them to just turn around and go, like, yeah, Fox News is fucking bullshit, these are the new media that we want to listen to, it just basically proves that they don't want to go with any facts. They just want to be told that this is the truth and this is what it is. But from an outside perspective, we see similarities, and people love Donald Trump. They wish they had. Some people here wish they had we had a prime minister who was like Donald Trump, who was anti-facts, says what he wants with no truth, and he's just there to fucking annoy liberal people and left-wing type people, and that's it.
I think these people, they mistake that kind of like almost toddler level of talking to people for honesty and calling power out. They present themselves as the men of the people that are going to sort of be the ones to bring down the establishment and all that kind of stuff. We've got the same thing happening here with people like Nigel Farage, for example, likes to present himself as a man of the people.
He's the furthest thing from it.
It's nationalism, innit? That's what it is.
Well, yeah, the nationalism's a part of it. Because basically what you've got in both America and over here, I think, is a massive amount of people which feel like they've been ignored for generations. These guys are presenting as the answer to that, and everyone wants someone to blame.
It is sad because there are a lot of people who, let's be real, they have been forgotten. We got a lot of industrial towns back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. They all had jobs and they all had opportunity and things were good. And then the 80s come and a different style of politics come and things start, but the free market gets even more sort of like, it just accelerates. And it's like, yo, we don't want to be paying people what they should be getting paid, deserve to be paid. So we're going to send their jobs to different markets around the world. And then a family that is earning decent money going on holidays is now gripped with unemployment and drugs and violence and all sorts of bad stuff that's happening to them. So then when you get these snake oil type salesmen who come along and go, oh, these are the elites who've done this to you, when it's like, you're part of that elite who was doing all this type of stuff. Like, you loved this shit when it was unregulated markets in the 80s and 90s and stuff. I mean, it's still going on to this day.
Do you think Biden will turn it around?
I don't have faith in him. I mean, I actually haven't been following like every single thing that he's been doing and passing, because I'm kind of just like overloaded for the last like few years. So I'm trying to like not pay attention to politics as much because it stressed me out a lot. But I see Biden as part of the problem. I mean, he's one of the people that put America in a place where they felt like they needed to elect Trump. You know, I think like the left is, a lot of the problem is the left, because when they get in power, they don't do the things that they came in power to do, and they tend to govern more from the right, or, you know, and so when things go wrong and they wind up being the corrupt guys, people just jump back to the right. They're like, oh, we tried the left guy. They don't look at the policies behind it. It's like, well, the guy that said he was on the left was actually doing right-wing stuff. And they're like, oh no, he's corrupt. And so like, no more left. And so they jump right back to the right. You know, and that's what people do. They just go back and forth. They're like, oh, this guy fucked up, we got to try the other party. But they don't look at like the policies behind it. So, I mean, Biden does seem to be more to the left than he had been in the past. But, you know, I just look at it. He is who he is. He's done what he's done. You know, there's a lot of people are dead because of him. You know, he's a warmonger. You know, he supported wars. He supported, you know, people getting locked up in this country. You know, he's been behind a lot of bad things for a long time, you know. So, like, I voted for him because, you know, I thought America was about to be a dictatorship. So I'd vote for him again over Trump. But I still give a disapproval when they ask if I approve of his presidency, just at a default. I don't see how Republicans are going to work with him. I don't think they're going to meet on any common grounds. You know, since Obama became president, the Republican default has been give them nothing, even if we agree with them. So I just don't see it. I think a lot of the problem too, I think people were better off when they were brainwashed by TV instead of brainwashed by the internet. It made more sense. I think with people getting all these crazy ideas all over the internet, I just don't see people coming back to their senses.
Yeah, it's true, man. The internet is you just said something which is correct, man. We thought TV brainwashes people, but the internet is a whole new ball game, man. There's so much this misinformation out there from all different sort of like whatever side you proclaim to be a part of. I'll read stuff on left-wing sites and they'll be saying something and I'll be like, that's not true, man. Like, literally, that is not true.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot more on the right side than the left side. The right is it's a complete shit show at the moment, man.
Everyone but us. Straight from the heart of London.
Yo, Seth, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been, I've really enjoyed it. It's been an amazing time, man. Anything you want to say before we shut up shop?
Well, thank you for having me. You know, it really is an honor, and it was unexpected even to be asked. I haven't done anything like this before, so it's really great. And I am serious. I really do want to play London one way or another, right? So like, I gotta figure out a way to make this happen, right? Not just London too. I want to go around the UK, right? I gotta go up to Scotland too.
Well, if you ever decide to come, well, hopefully it'd be of a band. But if you come for a holiday,
exactly, that's true.
We'll look after you, man. Yeah.
Well, what I'll do is if I come up for a holiday, maybe I could arrange something. I'll bring a guitar and just jump up with someone so I can at least play. You know?
We can do that.
You know? I'm just going to plug my own shit. Yo, check out my YouTube page. I got a lot of these old videos, and I got a lot of my solo music. I got videos of all the bands I've been in. YouTube.com/homicidal1.
Go check it out, man. And that's it, man. You guys, you want to say anything before we go? Steve, Lewis?
I'm just happy that I managed to speak to someone in 25 to Life, like a bona fide member of the band. Not, hate to say it, but not a scab member. Obviously, they came back a couple of years ago with Stickman, and that's you took it back, man, and that's a real cool thing to have done. And I hope that you guys can maybe one day come and play again and come over once all this Corona shit is done. So hope maybe, I don't know, probably won't happen, but 1-for-1 will be cool as well. But yeah, who knows? Wishful thinking.
Anyway, man, this has been the Everyone But Us podcast. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Bye.
You're listening to the Everyone But Us podcast, straight from the heart of London.
Wow.